Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to Strength Spotlight, powered by Strengths Masters. I'm your host, Seshasaya, and I'm truly honored to moderate today's conversation. We are joined by two distinguished leaders who bring with them a combined experience of over 5 decades across global leadership, talent development, and organizational transformation, Mr. Ashish Pradhan and Mr. Abhishek Joshi. Today's theme, People Before Profits. Why great CEOs always lead with talent is both timely as well as timeless. Now, in a world which is driven by metrics, today we pause to explore why people centric leadership is the real game changer. Now, let me take a moment to introduce our guests for today. Ashish Pradhan serves as President Asia at the Seagwer Group and is a member of Group Executive Committee. With nearly 3 decades in the packaging industry, he is a transformative leader known for driving business growth and organizational change. He joined Seagwork in 2015 as Chief Operating Officer and became President Asia in 2021, leading the company's regional expansion and earning it the Great Place to Work recognition. His leadership is marked by a strong focus on people development, sustainability, safety, and diversity. Ashish holds an engineering degree, a postgraduate degree in management, and diplomas in international trade and packaging. He has completed executive education program at Harvard and INSEAD. Now, prior to Siegwerk, he held senior leadership roles at Hatamaki, Henkel, and International Paper. An avid trucker and sports enthusiast, Ashish is also a regular columnist writing on leadership for leading English dailies and magazines. Welcome, Ashish. It's an absolute honor to have you in this podcast.
Thank you, Sai. Happy to be here.
Pleasure all ours, Ashish. Abhishek Joshi is the founder of Strength Masters and a Gallup certified strengths coach. With an illustrious career and experience in learning and talent management, he has been instrumental in establishing strengths based development and transformational practices in numerous organizations ranging from large scale companies to growth stage organizations. Welcome, Abhishek, and thank you very much for joining us in this podcast.
Thank you, Sai. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Ashish.
Okay, now, dear LinkedIn leaders, let's dive straight into the conversation with Ashish and Abhishek. Now, in a world where metrics often overshadow mindsets, people before profits feels almost radical. So let's begin with the very big question: what does it truly mean today? Now, Ashish and Abhishek, this is a common question which is coming your way. Anyone of you can take that. What does people before profits truly mean in today's business environment?
So, Ashish, please go ahead.
Oh, all right. Maybe I'll start off, and Abhishek, of course, you'll join me later. So for me, this is a little bit of a misnomer because profits are a result, and people are how you get those results. So you are comparing results with the enabler of results. So for me, it's a little bit of a let's say not a fair comparison. In fact, it's not a comparison at all. So for me, profits is a result of consistent actions that companies take, which are in line with their culture and in line with their strategy. Yeah. And I put culture before strategy because, as I mean, all of us know, as Mr. Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So I believe, and I fully support that statement from Peter Drucker. So culture is something related to people, yeah. And so unless we have a focus on people and their value systems, because the value systems of our people, our individuals who work for us, unless they coincide with the values of the organization, what the organization stands for, you have a cultural dissonance, which will in turn result in the outcome that is not what we want in terms of profits. And then if you move one step ahead, values will drive behaviors. So unless we have the right value system confluence, we will not have the right behaviors coming through.
Right.
So for me, this is really the basis or the basis of any successful business. What happens now in today's world, there's so much of change. The rate of change has grown exponentially over the last decades, if not centuries. And because of this, the let's say the attention span of businesses and people is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I mean, we have a lot of companies focusing on just quarterly results. and so on and so forth. So in this kind of a volatile environment, it's absolutely critical for senior leadership to really maintain course and keep their focus on the right things, which is really related to people who finally make the difference and will then result in the metrics that you mentioned, Sai, which is, let's say, profits in one case. That's how I look at this whole topic of profit and people.
Sure. Thanks, Ashish. So
Very
I'll just,
interesting insight. Abhishek, yeah,
add,
please.
yeah, absolutely. So if you look at, there are three things for me, Sai, people, process, and profit. Right? So people drive process, and process drives profit. But if the starting point is people, so therefore it has to people should come first. So therefore, people, process, and profit. If you look at this equation, the first puzzle that needs to be answered is what drives people, and if that is answered, then process and profit will automatically be driven. So that's my bit of addition to what Ashish just said. Thanks.
Great, great, Ashish and Abhishek. Ashish, I really like the way you started off with the word called misnomer, and you used Peter Drucker, who's we all read in the MBA books, Culture It Starts It for Breakfast. I particularly like the way that yes, on one hand, it is quite imperative that yes, without people, no profits, and Abhishek, you brought in the the second P as well, people, process, and profits, of course, and process drives profits. Yeah, but at the same time, in today's dynamic business environment wherein the change is actually exponential, how do you strike a balance is where the leaders like us need to keep that we should be cognizant, take cognizance of that fact that okay, on one hand results definitely are important, but at the same time who are responsible to generate those results. Okay, so let's not be, while sometimes being tactical is critical, but also let's not lose sight of of the bigger picture. Thank you very much, Ashit. Those were very interesting insights. And Abhishek, thank you for bringing in the most important element of the two P's, which is the third P, process. Yeah, thank you so much. Now moving on, Ashish, this question is specifically for you. Now, as a president leading across Asia, how do you identify and nurture future ready talent across diverse cultures?
That's it's an interesting question, and I've been responsible for the Asia business now for the last 4+ years. And what I've understood and what I've observed is that we as human beings connect with each other as human beings. So there is a certain level of at an intrinsic level we appreciate the same values. We want transparency, we want trust, we want appreciation, we want inclusion. So they remain the same across cultures. Whether you talk to a Chinese manager or a leader, you talk to an Indonesian one, you talk to an Indian one, it remains the same. So this whole cultural diversity topic, in my view, we could make the mistake of overemphasizing that, because at an intrinsic level we are all the same. So at when you actually connect with people, if you connect with people at at a human level, they respond to you. I'll give you an example. Before being President Asia, I was the MD of our China business, and when I took over that responsibility, a lot of people said, "Hey, an Indian heading a Chinese business, difficult culture, language, and so on and so forth." But when I actually went and worked out of China, it was such a wonderful experience, because when you connect with them at, as I said, at a very intrinsic human level, they respond. So I and that tells me that if I have to identify talent, it is not so much about looking at cultural sensitivity, it is looking at their value systems, their attitudes, because that really drives leadership in my view. Skill sets, yes, I mean hard skill sets can be developed. Yeah, and they can I think you can always augment hard skill sets with even external resources in some cases.
Right.
But your inherent attitudes, value systems, these are the ones that make you as a person and as a leader. And for me, that is a very, very key topic for choosing the leaders of the organization for the future. So in a nutshell, I would say Yes, cultural diversity is important to be considered when we select people to head, especially cross regional roles. But I would say that is still something that comes as a good to have and not a must to have. For a must to have for me is a leader who with the right mindset, right value systems, and right attitudes.
Right.
Fantastic. Very great, great, great. Abhishek, your take a quick take.
No,
Anything
Sai,
that
I
you would
think
like to add?
no, Sai, nothing to add. Ashish has explained it absolutely nicely. And I mean, it is Ashish's perspective as a business leader that is more important to this question
I
specifically,
know,
Sai.
I know.
Yeah.
More important. But I really liked Ashish, when you said human to human connect, maybe in today's era, in the AI, in the age of AI, there's a lot of talk going around among the big leaders that empathy, emotional value systems, ethics, and all. Yeah, I mean, it should not be considered very loosely. I mean, I would say that it's not a euphemism, but this is one red thread which, and I really like the way you when you said it's a must to have quality or an attribute that if you're able to connect intrinsically inherently with a person who may be from a different culture or different country at the value system level, I think automatically everything will fall in place. It will be a seamless rest all hard skills as you I completely resonate, and I'm sure even the audience will resonate with that what you said, that hard skills can be acquired through external resources, but this is something which has to come through your innate. It should be your inner voice that yes, I mean, language no barrier, culture no barrier, okay, boundaries no barrier, economic condition doesn't not a barrier. So I think that's a great perspective to put things in order. So thank you so much, Ashish, for those wonderful
And
insights. Now
one
moving
problem,
on, Abhishek.
one,
Yeah,
sorry, one
yeah, please,
just
Ashish.
last thought, which is important, is that you need to demonstrate the right values. Yeah, we can all talk about it, but
Uh,
actions speak a
yes,
lot louder
yes.
than words. So, and one needs to look at what values one demonstrates when we choose leaders for the future.
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, this reminds me my favorite quote from Stephen M. R. Covey's book Speed of Trust, that knowing it and not doing it is like not knowing it. I think that this you know uh, only speaking about value systems but not demonstrating it as a leader. I mean, it loses its flavor. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Uh, yeah, Abhishek, the next question is for you. From a Gallup strengths lens, why do
Sure.
great leaders focus on individual uniqueness instead of fixing weaknesses?
So, Sai, if you look at, let's talk about data. So let's say if I'm a business leader, what kind of data I have available about my team, my leaders, my people in the organization? Obviously, the competency data is available, performance data is available, but how can I know more about with them? So the simplest data that is available, that could be available to a leader about the team is individuals and their strengths. So what happens, when you start looking at this data and decoding this data, you understand, how they do what they do, and that is a very very game changing idea. So for example, let's say, what will they do? Knowledge, competency, skill, experience, absolutely, that's really really valued. But once you get an understanding about how will they do what they will what I am assigning them to do, or whatever they are taking responsibility, you start accepting them the way they are. You also are very clear about the support system that you will provide them. So basically, by leveraging this data about your team, you are creating a path where you are absolutely clear about the support system that you will deploy to make sure that they become successful. Like, everyone comes to office to become successful. No one gets up in the morning and say that I will go and I'll fail today. So now, as a leader, if I'm leading a team, my job is to ensure that I'm also able to give them a support system which allows them to do what they really, really are good at, and apply themselves with the right intent. So strengths data actually gives you very clear understanding about the intent of individuals, and also help you create a support system for them. And that's where it becomes uh, really a game changing idea, and but a very simple way. It can be done in a very simple way. So that's how it works. That's my view about it. Yeah.
Excellent. I mean, a great food for thought. That, one is if you know about not just your own strengths but also your team members' strengths, your self-awareness goes up, and the way you look at people, I mean, it gives you a completely a different paradigm. Okay, you experience a mini paradigm shift, because then you stop judging people, you start accepting the other people the way they are. You know your areas of, I mean, where exactly you need support. I won't use the word weaknesses, but then the areas where the person needs support, and that's how you can navigate smoothly. Thank you so much, Abhishek. Great perspectives. Okay, now the next question is again common to you both, Ashish and Abhishek, and even so I'll leave it to you. Why is investing in talent no longer just an HR function, but a CEO's imperative?
So she's
Maybe
like to.
this time I
Okay,
give it to
okay,
you,
sure,
Abhishek.
sure. So a long time ago, Sai, I read an article by Ramcharan, and this article was about, and it actually moved me a lot. And this is something which I saw a lot in organization. And GE was the first organization which implemented this. And that article is still available in HBR. It talks about split HR into two. So and it's a very controversial, it could be a very controversial statement to say right now, but I'm talking about the subtext of the statement. So what it means, so talent management is always a strategic agenda of the organization. It is the CEO's agenda or the business leader's agenda. A lot of places it gets diluted, and the role of HR remains limited to the operational aspect of it. So therefore, it is a very very strategic agenda, and therefore it has to be driven by the top. And but unfortunately, it is not written anywhere. It is not written anywhere. The organizations who are able to leverage this thought are able to drive the talent management processes in such a way that it becomes integral part of the business system processes, and it gives results. It is very well connected with the business initiatives of the organization. So that's my view, Sai. Just to answer to this question, I'd like to hear Ashish's views also. Yeah.
No, thanks, Abhishek. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I My perspective is that look at if you look at the evolution of business, and there have been, if you cast your mind 50, 60, 70 years ago, uh, p- companies used to differentiate, or let's say successful companies differentiated themselves from the not so successful ones with products, with innovation, with different strategies. um, and this continued for a fairly long period of time. But as if you cast your mind now in the last decade or so, right? So the lifespan of innovations is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Right? You have a brilliant new product that you put on the market. The time between you putting it on the market, unless it's patented, and which, okay, then we're talking about a very small niche, let's say in the pharma segment. uh, this product, a Me Too product, will come into the market in a fairly short time as compared to what it was in the past. Similarly, if you look at strategy, so there are super successful companies which had a certain marketing strategy. They segmented their market in a particular way. They approached each segment in a very focused manner. And this strategy also nowadays for people to assess and then to emulate is becoming very very common, very easy. So for example, let's look at Ziegwork. Now we make printing inks for packaging, for example, but we position ourselves as solution providers to packaging and not ink suppliers to packaging, right? And with that we mean that we don't just supply you inks, but we provide you solutions to your larger problems of printing or lamination or whatever it may be related to packaging. And then for that we have in-house services, we have on-site consulting, and so on and so forth. And this is a strategy that has worked well for us. But then this is also something that my esteemed competition is also now trying to emulate in the market in a short period of time. But still, our success in Zigwork is then dependent on the execution of this strategy. And this is done by people. So at the end of the day, if I don't have the right people to execute that strategy, if I don't have the right people to continuously innovate and put us ahead of the curve, we will not be able to maintain our leadership position in the market. And that is a CEO imperative. To maintain
Right.
leadership in the market or to grab leadership in the market is a CEO imperative. And today, more than at any point in the evolution of business, I believe people are the real differentiators. You All the other hard differentiators in terms of products, as I said, or maybe strategy, etc. They of course they are needed, but it's the people who will actually make this more and more, let's say, relevant as we go ahead. So today, and it'll happen even more in the future, even though we talk about AI and so on and so forth, it'll be people who then utilize AI for the benefit of the organization, and there will be some people who do it better than others. Yeah. So in the end, investing in that talent is really, it's a very soft, let's say, a soft imperative, but it gives extremely hard results, which is profits
Yes.
at the end.
Fantastic, Ashish. Beautifully said. If I have to summarize whatever you just said, and you explained it in a very, 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 like relatable thing by giving an example. So, which brings us to the conclusion that yes, uh, anything and everything under the sun can be replicated, be it a strategy, be it a process, or be it products. Okay, but there is one ultimate competitive advantage, which is people. Okay, so this is one thing which cannot be really replicated, and if you invest in people, and these your people are the one who will execute the strategies, because no strategy is good or bad, but if there's an execution gap, your results will not be achieved. Fantastic. That's a great point. I mean, this conversation is really turning out to be a very, very interesting one. Now, moving on, Ashish, this is for you. This question is for you. What role does L&D play in shaping a high-performing, agile leadership pipeline at Sequoia?
So I believe it's, I mean, eh, eh, when we say L&D, it means a certain, or it signifies a certain function in our heads. But at the end of the day, it is talent development.
Right.
What we so just take Seagoat India for that matter. In the last 10 years, we have grown three times, right? So it's now, if the business grows at that speed, then you of course need talent to be able to drive and maintain and continue to develop that business in the future. And all this is related to organizational development and design.
Right.
So one is to then have the vision. So today, for example, we just finished a strategy exercise. How would SIG look like in 2030, right? And with that, then we say, okay, if this is our aspiration, and because of let's say market attractiveness versus our ability to win in the market, and the typical 2 by 2 matrix, and then going through that whole process of strategy development, we develop a strategy and a vision that by 2030 we want to be here. But what kind of organization do we think we will need at that point of time to be able to succeed in executing that strategy?
Right.
That will then tell us what kind of positions, what kind of skill sets that people would need at that point of time. And then if you look at the organization today, then you see the gaps. Then you see the gaps in terms of people. You see the gaps in terms of their skill sets, their behaviors, and so on and so forth. And then we need to then put a plan in place, which is the typical, let's say, L&D input in this whole process, as to how do we then help the organization and the employees to close those gaps. So it is, so L&D is a part of that whole process. It's an intrinsic part of that whole process. The thing is that it's not a one time exercise, or it's it's a mindset also. The organization needs to have an, if for want of a better word, let's say, an L&D mindset or a learning mindset. And because this is something that is important, because as we go along the next 5 years, a lot of things will not go according to plan. We may have a strategy, we may have a vision, but I
Mm.
mean, in today's volatile world, things will change very, very rapidly. And then, do we have the do our processes have the ability to adjust? Are they agile processes, or are they very, very rigid processes? And this is also then something that L&D can actually influence. Is our organization's learning capability agile? how can we build agility in this whole learning curve of the organization. So for me, L&D isn't a very intrinsic part of it, but it's not the in my view at least, it's not the very traditional L&D where you have, okay, every year you have a performance appraisal, a performance management system, you have gaps and your individual development plans. Yes, but it is
Right.
not. It's a lot more strategic in my view, and then the big question again with senior leadership is that how do we make this a part of the mindset? Well, how can we bring, for example, how can we just bring feedback as a mechanism of learning and development? Because that's one of the thing, building a feedback culture by itself is a huge learning opportunity. So
Right.
one needs to, in my view, look a little bit beyond the classic L&D interpretation of that function, and go a little bit wider. But it's absolutely intrinsic in terms of its relevance to business.
Absolutely.
Great perspective, Ashish. Great perspective. So, for the benefit of my audience, I mean, I was thinking aloud when you said one is L&D is an intrinsic function of any organization. That's a great point. And you also spoke about the speed of business or the velocity of business is a function of not just talent development, but also maybe a function of talent acquisition. And that's where both these sides of the these are the two sides of the same coin, and they need to act in tandem. One is the talent acquisition teams is responsibility is or their duty or their the task in hand, the job in hand is uh, to envisage what's going to happen in the future, which brings in the futuristic this thing element. What sort of, as you rightly said, because the business dynamics are so volatile, you never know what's going to happen the very next day or the very in the next month. So
Mm.
anticipating what kind of talent is required and where to source them, and once they are in place, okay, then how to develop them on certain required, what are some of the skills requisite skills which are required in the current era. Fantastic. I think Ashish some great points, and that will be another thing which I really liked is that, and that's a great message to all the leaders like you, that how do we inculcate the culture of feedback? And this is, this has to be a mindset shift, that it needs to be inside us, that yes, feedback is something which has to be a very, very integral part of leadership. Yeah. How do we accept feedback and give feedback? Thank you so much, Ashish, for those wonderful insights. Moving on, Abhishek, this question is for you. How can organization build a culture where strengths-based development is not a one-time initiative but a sustained practice?
So absolutely, I'd like to link it with Ashish's response to your previous question. So don't look at it in isolation, like one program that we have to do after performance management and all that. If it is line with the business initiative, because ultimately, if it is not in line with the business objective, like he talked about Vision 2030 that the organization is uh, just completed that exercise. So similarly, if it is absolutely designed and implemented with an intent to bring some kind of transformation, it will definitely give good results. Many times, what happens, organization look at it as one of the initiatives, and then it is just. I always say that, okay, don't do that, because that's something which you are, that's a waste of money. So if it is not linked with business objectives, then it is not going to give results. But let's say if it is linked with business objective and there is a proper process that's followed, then it can bring very good results in terms of which are key. It can really impact key business metrics. So for example, let's say it can impact a critical metrics like employee net promoter score, which is very important in today's time. It can have a positive impact in reduction of employees grievances. It can have a positive impact in three areas: alignment, openness, and initiative orientation. So for example, let's say if you want to drive initiatives, then the fundamental process to start with that is with alignment. Alignment with obviously vision, mission, strategy, but alignment with of individual with each other and individual with self. That's how the real openness builds in the culture of the organization. And then initiatives are driven, and initiatives are taken by individuals on their own and departments on their own. So like I said, Sai, if it is aligned with business strategy, business objectives, it will have fantastic results. But if it is just look like an assessment or one day workshop, it may not result anything. So that's my view.
Great, great. Great, Abhishek. I guess the key takeaway is that yes, any talent development initiative has to be aligned with the overall business objective, and that is where the strategic architecture comes into picture, and this is a journey. A 1 day or a 2 day workshop may or may not be fruitful. It could be a nice to have thing, but may not be a must have thing. Great point, Abhishek. Thank you so much. Now, moving on, this is again a common question, which is to you both. How do you balance business performance with people centric leadership in today's volatile markets, or maybe in volatile markets?
So Ashish, kindly this time you go
Anybody,
first.
Abhishek, Ashish. So I leave it to you decide. Yeah, who goes first?
Um, yeah, so I think the key thing for me is that the in volatile markets, our results are also volatile. Yeah. So there are so many external factors that are not in your control that can either have a positive or a negative impact on how your results look. So that's the whole, let's say, the definition of volatility, right? So your external environment is changing so rapidly, on which you have little control. Let's say, for example, the 50% tariffs that we are looking at the moment. So a
Yeah,
company, dependent on the American market for their business is going to be
yeah,
really struggling with this. So and this is totally unpredictable. So in my view, I think Abhishek, what you raised right at the beginning of this podcast was relating to processes. So I'm a big believer in processes uh, rather than results, because results is can be influenced by many factors that are not in your control, whether good or bad, right?
Yeah,
So if you look at, but if you just stay the course, as long as you are convinced that the process is the right one, have faith in the process and the people who are executing that process, who are driving that process. Have faith in people, strategy, and processes, in my view, and keep that course. And this is brilliantly explained, let's say, by in the book Good to Great. I really love that book, where he talks about right people, right thought, and right action. Right, so, and it starts with right people. So if you
yeah,
have the right people on board, if you have right people on your bus, and then right thought is your strategy, and right actions is what how you deploy that strategy or execute that strategy through processes. If you have that and stay the course, I mean, one of my favorite lines to my colleagues in my company, and I think maybe they get fed up with this, is that don't get carried away with good results, but don't get too despondent with bad ones as well, because results are just that, they are results. Yeah? But what
right,
is in your control is what actions you're taking, what processes you're following, and what's the strategy. And always keep an open mind whether you need to tweak your strategy a little bit, you need to completely overhaul it. And one has to be very much open to those kind of signals. Is the external environment changing so dramatically that the strategy that you had put in place today is completely defunct now because things have changed? And what do I need to change with that? And in all this, the one thing that remains common is having the right people on board. If you have the right people with the right mentality, with the right agility, with the learning mindset, with the right value systems, you you can have a bad patch, but you will not fail in the end.
absolutely. And Ashish, thank you for sharing this. I'd like to just share my experience of handling team, handling business people in the volatile market. I've been part of BFSI market, BFSI industry before that, and I remember subprime crisis and absolutely tough time for BFSI industry, and there are such periods which everyone have seen in their career. So during this time, what Ashish just said, faith in people who are there with you, that's really critical. Another element which becomes absolutely clear critical is communicating with them very openly and transparently, communicating them, giving them real picture. And in fact, there are four elements that we talk about in strength based leadership: trust, stability, compassion, and hope. And these four elements, which are very critical part of a leader's role, they come they become very visible uh, in the time of crisis. And recent Gallup study and data says that one of the core role of a leader in not just in a time of crisis, but any other time also. It's to inspire people. But how? Inspire people by creating hope in your environment. So these are few ways, I in my experience, in which we can manage business, deal with the volatile situation of the business, and with very clear understanding that these cycles will come and also
Yeah,
go. Yeah. So
true, true, true.
Some of
so
some wonderful insights actually came from both of you. One is Ashish, I really like the way you said, results, regardless of the nature of the results, it's a robust process is like a spinal cord which will keep the organization afloat. And you also spoke about faith. Abhishek, I really in particular like the way that you said faith in invest in people, have faith in them, and which impacts the four dimensions of in the four dimensions of strength-based leadership: trust, stability, compassion, and hope. I also like the part because Ashish, you said Jim Collins is one of your favorite books. It incidentally is one of my favorites as well. I really like the way when he says that it's the who which matters. Okay, before we have the what and the why part, let's first of all, it's like a bus going to a destination. Destination is not known. Okay, but the people who gets into the bus, they should feel, I mean, okay, wherever you're going doesn't matter whoso is the driver. We're just rallying behind, we're just going. So people sharing the same set of beliefs in ethics and ethos, I guess, I mean, that summarizes all. Thank you so much. This is really getting very, very interesting. Okay, now moving on. uh, Ashish, this question is to you. Can you share a specific example where a talent first approach directly impacted your business outcomes?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so maybe I'll take an example of my time in Ziegler. When I joined the company in 2015. We had a certain business unit which was not really performing well. It was a business unit which catered to a market segment that was the largest in the packaging industry, and it was the fastest growing. So it was, and for us, it was maybe the weakest business unit. And of course, then as a new leader, one looks at strategy first. That's a very typical default of all us MBAs, that we first look at strategy, and that's what I did as well. And to be honest, I didn't find too many gaps in the strategy. I mean, there were a few, but not too many. But at the end of the day, I realized that we need to really revamp and the team, and then invest in the team. Yeah, and so this was a loss-making business unit, and we really did a lot of work with the team. We changed a lot of personnel because the right people were not on the bus. As you said, Sai, a few minutes back, that we need to have the right people on the bus. So we made sure we had the right people on the bus, and we really invested heavily in this team all through the last 10 years. And over the last 10 years, this BU, from being one of the smallest in our portfolio of business units, is now the largest, and now contributes the largest profits to the company as well. And this is where we actually invested ahead of the curve. What gave, let's say, us the confidence to do this? One is the market, of course, the market dynamic, and what we believed is the strength of Sigor, but also what I believe was the core strength of Sigwork at that time, because there was a certain core, let's say, a core set of people who were super passionate, who were extremely competent, and we built the whole business around that core, and that core had to be invested in. So that's what we did, and to be honest, today we look back and say, wow, that's quite a journey. Yeah? And this is something that I feel extremely contented about, that we put our money where our mouth was, and it has finally given us our investment back multifold.
Great example, Ashish, and that for sure corroborates and validates the topic for today's podcast. That yes, and I'm sure it would be a great sigh of relief, or rather, a validation from someone like you that yes, investing in people definitely is going to fetch results. people, when you say, your people who have the shared vision, shared responsibility, they rally towards, they have a bind towards that vision, and then they're passionate towards it. Fantastic, great, some of the great insights, Sasha. Thank you so much. Abhishek, this question is to you. Uh,
Sure thing.
in your experience, how can strength-based leadership affect team resilience and retention?
So if you look at, it's pretty simple, Sai. So what happens, when we start with data. So let's look at data and let's try to derive. The starting point is data, and data to judgment. That's how it works. So we start with understanding who people are by looking at their top five strengths. Then what happens, we look at four dimensions of each strength. So for example, let's say if you look at, when we look at human beings from a strength point of view, each strength, people are in four clusters, execution, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. So therefore, we are able to map the entire cohort or entire group of an organization, that okay, where does the organization skew towards. So for example, I'll give you an example and explain. So we recently worked with top 45 leaders of one of the organization, and what we found is that all of them excel in execution, all of them excel in strategic thinking. None of the top 45 leaders have empathy as their top five strength. And I don't want to talk about the industry, and don't want to give any hint. But I think this was something which we presented to the CEO. He got the answer. He said, "I know what I have to do. You don't have to tell me what's happening." And our recommendation was very simple. That okay, so you are expecting to do a lot of people-centric initiatives from those individuals who are doing very good in execution. They look at what to do, and they look at data, why to do. In between, it doesn't come organically to them, but they are giving you results, right? So there is something, which
Results,
I
yeah.
think, everyone who's part of this podcast is leading a team, leading an organization. They got their answer. And I think, rest is obvious. I don't have to even explain what needs to be done. So that it is as simple,
No, no,
when you look at data
great, because
and people, and
yeah,
then plot them and look at
as
so it becomes really easy. So,
so let actually data speaks for itself. You don't require
yeah,
any other thing.
absolutely.
And I really like that Ashish said that yes, we as MBAs, we are so obsessed with making strategies. Not that strategy has to be there in place, but then why aren't we? Why do we more than often we forget the very simple, very basic elementary things. And sometimes I think I reflect personally that it's it becomes it's actually very beneficial if we at times if we devote time to think about why can't we go get back to basics. Okay, and
Yeah,
that's where I guess it
sure.
there's no harm. It's it gives you a lot of room for self reflection.
Yeah,
We as humans, okay, ironically we are humans, of course. So let's not create any opportunity wherein this human to human connect actually fades away. Great, I guess now we are pushing to the fag end of we just have enough time to, because I'm sure if anyone of an audience are Gen Z, though I hate to I hate to use these terminologies, because first of all, why do we even compartmentalize? But one quick question, and Ashish and Abhishek, I would really appreciate if you guys can give you a quick. What shifts are you seeing in the expectations of Gen Z talent, and how should leaders respond? A quick take from you, Ashish and Abhishek. Yeah.
Ashish.
Abhishek, you want to go first?
Okay, yeah. So I'll quickly share data, Sai. Recent data which was published by Gallup, and the president of Gallup, he published the data. He said, lonely Gen Z wants to come to office, and so they look
Okay.
at purpose more than paycheck, and they want to be
Paycheck.
connected, and they look for culture, collaboration, and all that. And that's something which is very essential to them. And like Ashish said, that as business leaders, if we are not thinking about people centric approach, and we are thinking that business is different than people centric approaches, then it's not going to work for Gen Z. They look for purpose more than the paycheck. And this is not my personal opinion. This is reliable, valid, and credible data that I'm sharing with you with all responsibility. Sure.
No, I
Purpose. Ashish,
fully
your
agree.
quick take.
Yeah, fully agree, Abhishek. And for me, there's one more P that I associate with Gen Z, and that's passion. They
Yeah.
uh, they really want to see passion at work, and that passion then of course relates to not only purpose, but also it has a certain fun element to it. So I think the whole move is from the right side, left side of the brain to the right side of the brain, and a good balance. So I think we oldies possibly were more skewed towards the cognitive side, but I think the Gen Z is looking at a more holistic experience from a workplace.
Holistic. Fantastic. Great, Ashish. I mean, that's a great way to end it. A gradual shift from left brain to right brain. Fantastic. And yeah, yeah. Okay. So great, great. Thank you so much, Ashish and Abhishek, for your invaluable insights and some of very, very inspiring perspectives on leading with talent. It's been a truly enriching conversation. I wish we would have, could have some more time. A big thank you, of course, to our audience as well for tuning in, engaging, and staying curious. We hope today's discussion sparked fresh thoughts on what it means to put people before profits. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and heart. Stay connected, stay inspired. Goodbye, and take care. And a big God bless.
Thank you, Sai. Thank you, Ashish.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Sai.
everybody.
Thank you, Ashu. Thank you
Thank
so much.
Thanks.
Take
Thank you.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.